Standard physics defines the universe through familiar starting lines: a particle, a quantum field, a coordinate in space, or a tick of time. These candidates fail as fundamental starting points. Every proposed physical primitive presupposes a prior condition. To describe a particle or measure a field, that element must first be available to be described. If we systematically remove everything that depends on something appearing, the particles, the space, the time, the observer, we find availability itself. We call this Q. Q is a logical condition, not a physical object. It is the operational baseline for reality, independent of any specific location or moment. Attempting to deny availability immediately creates a paradox. The denial itself must be available to exist. Physics begins at the logical precondition for anything to appear at all. For availability to become articulate, it must become available to itself. This requires a distinction. Identity yields undifferentiated sameness. Without an articulated relation, nothing occurs. We call this Q star. Availability introduces distinction while remaining itself. This is self-reference in non-identity. This self-reference is a logical structural articulation. It exists independently of a temporal process or a pre-existing clock. Self-reference in non-identity satisfies the minimum requirement for an occurrence to exist. Once a distinction is articulated, it must persist to remain available. Persistence requires three inseparable functions: initiation to form the distinction, modulation to orient the relation, and stabilization to contain the result. Any pair is insufficient on its own. Formation and containment without relation leave the articulation blind and disconnected. To persist, each function must apply recursively to itself. Initiation must initiate, modulate, and stabilize. The other functions follow the same rule. This generates exactly 9 addressed phase roles within one recursively articulated persistence operation. This is recursive closure, defined by the equation Q star equals R sub K of Q star. R names the recursive return, while K identifies the phase address through which that return occurs. The structure of reality follows the strict requirements of logical persistence. This logical closure projects into an algebraic field relation while maintaining its structural integrity. The geometric product expresses this projection through a symmetric scalar term, U dot v, and an antisymmetric bivector term, U wedge v. The scalar term handles directed differentiation, represented by the vector line. The bivector handles the containing relation, represented by the oriented plane. Physical rotation arises as a downstream dynamic signature when these two elements reciprocally close. The geometric product allows formation and containment to coexist in a single algebraic projection. Complete conjugate pairing requires every formative direction to have exactly one corresponding containing plane. In n dimensions, the total number of independent vectors is n, while the total number of independent bivectors is n times n minus 1 divided by 2. Setting these values equal solves for perfect conjugate pairing. The equation yields two solutions, n equals 0 or n equals 3. 3 dimensions is the unique non-trivial result. Notice how 3 distinct vector axes pair 1-to-1 with 3 orthogonal bivector planes. 3-dimensional space is the unique mathematical consequence of logical pairing. In this 3D space, vectors and bivectors are duals, expressed inside a single unified object. We write this unified field as F equals E plus IB. E is the formative vector articulation. B is the containing component. Electric and magnetic fields exist as conjugate grades of one unified field. Persistence always requires a continuous, source-free differential closure, where formative differentiation and containing integration recursively regenerate each other. Electromagnetism is the first stable geometric expression of logical persistence. An addressed field must maintain its balance to prevent collapse or dissolution. The persistence ratio, T sub k, defines the address-relative relation between formative propagation and containing integration. When formative propagation exceeds containing integration, the address diffuses. Differentiation outruns the capacity to stabilize. If containing integration exceeds formative propagation, the address rigidifies. Stabilization suppresses renewed differentiation. Active impedance match creates a completely stable, continuous occurrence, where formative propagation and containing integration are perfectly balanced. Stability in nature manifests as a violent, continuous, active impedance match between formation and containment. A stabilized closure becomes the containing environment for further articulation. This is the scaling law. This creates coupling density, the degree to which nested closures participate coherently at a single address. Increased scale changes organization and coupling density without introducing new substances. The same recursive grammar continues through greater depth. This continuous gradient of participation accommodates every occurrence, from a single wave to the most intricate nested systems. An occurrence can change its coupling density while remaining the same closure. Harmonic signature defines identity, the persistent pattern of phase relationships through which a closure remains identifiable across different states. This entire derivation functions without subjects, objects, or independent space, or detached external observers. The observer, the boundary, and the act of measurement are all occurrences constituted by this exact same recursive grammar. The universe is availability recursively becoming articulate to itself. The recursion holds.